Welcome back, everybody. Long time no see. Today's video is going to be a meta update following TI and with the 7.37D patch holding us off until hopefully 7.38 when the new hero is released. Hopefully, fingers crossed, with Act 4 in about a month. So we're going to talk about the meta update at TI, why they made the changes that they did in 7.37D, and things to be keeping an eye out for moving forward. So when we pull up the TI meta, let's point out a few noteworthy things. First and foremost, there were 22 heroes that went completely uncontested, 21 technically because Ringmaster was not in the pool. And we had another 4 heroes that were literally never picked, and we had another 8 heroes that were only picked one time, most of which were hardly banned at all, except for Ember Spirit and Huskar, which makes sense. So this is one of the least hero diverse TIs in all of TI history. At the end of the day, they can't perfectly balance the game, but it did feel like the meta was defined by aura items for the most part, combined with Gleipnir buyers. So what that really created was heroes that were hard to kill, hard to gank, and also a lot of saves being popular. So we're going to see healing, saves, aura buyers, and ranged damage dealers that buy a Gleipnir as our predominant heroes in the meta. So you see ranged often played support, but with the solar flare, ranged carry with the whirlwind facet. This is actually a save support twice. The drinking buddies got nerfed in 7.37D, but it was a save with snowball plus drinking buddies. Boxy absolutely destroyed with Tusk. Dragonite felt like the stable hero, playing mid and carry with the fire dragon facet. That's the only one people were using. Didn't have the best win rate though. But just kind of notice that the heroes were either of the description of ranged damage dealer, save, single target, Q, because items like Solar Crest were really popular. So Rider and Doom are the single target Q heroes. And then other heroes were simply drafted as a response because they were good against ranged carries. So we're seeing a lot of offlaners that were willing to rush Blade Mail against the likes of Lina, Windranger, Luna. That was Kunkka. That's pretty much why he was picked. We saw Windranger into Kunkka because Tidebringer couldn't miss, and he gets to rush a Blade Mail. Centaur also pretty high up there for the same reason. When we looked at the carries, we saw, as I mentioned, the reliable farming carries, all of which who went Gleipnir, except for Luna. And the reason that Luna was so popular was because of the rework to her skill set, allowing her to go 404 with the beam talent. She was able to farm and fight early, something that's maybe not as powerful in pubs, especially low MMR pubs, because she scales worse later on because she no longer has the damage reduction from the shard, assuming she goes for that facet. But in competitive, it was just too high tempo for teams like Team Liquid. And then we see the fact that towards the end of the tournament, as these ranged heroes were getting more and more banned and contested, heroes like Nature's Prophet started coming out in the carry role even. And we had to have mid laners who jumped these guys, because if you have like a tanky melee mid laner, it felt pretty bad. So even DK as a melee mid laner was going Blink Dagger, obviously. Sand King, the most like banned hero of the tournament pretty much, other than Naga Siren. You have Sand King, Storm, Puck. So it felt like the entire meta revolved around these 3 or 4 carries that were just a freaking step above everyone else. You pick 5 supports that saved them: the Omni Knights, the Treant Protectors, the Shadow Demons. In pubs, we're seeing Ringmaster, right, because he has a save. You pick mid laners who jump the ranged carries. You pick off laners with Blade Mails and Auras in order to buff up these ranged carries and also counter the other ranged carry in the early game with items like Blade Mail and Crimson Guard. And then the 4 position really came down to even more utility and pressure oftentimes. But that's why Tusk towards the end of the tournament just became absolutely premier. And a hero like Snapfire was also, as you see, really high up there. Just a reliable laning stage out of all the ranged heroes right now. Offers a little bit of catch, closing the gap. And if you're thinking about having like a Centaur against a ranged carry, the Cookie from Snapfire just makes so much sense. The Tusk Snowball makes so much sense. We even saw some Marcy in the tournament if you're thinking about heroes that just allow you to close the gap. So notice how Lina like stopped getting picked throughout the course of the tournament, and this is why, right? 30% win rate. Towards the beginning, she was really high up there, but she ended up getting replaced pretty much by Nature's Prophet as the tournament went on, because they're like, okay, we need like a 4th ranged carry. Lina's not working. Luna's getting banned. Windranger's getting banned or picked first. and Nature's Prophet was the one that took over. So that's the meta that we were seeing for TI. So that's the meta for TI, right? So now we get to kind of go, what was Valve thinking with 7.37D? Just a little bit of a band-aid patch to hold us over. So a lot of the aura items also came with early grouping. Ever since the map's been made big, teams are trying their best to run at you as fast as possible, because applying a ton of pressure like that, killing your buildings, and then farming the entire map just makes a lot of sense, rather than chase people down, group up, take objectives, have all the space on the map, farm. So even items like Arcane Boots were super broken because mana regen in an aura is just better for grouping up than flat mana that Arcane Boots used to give. So they made them more expensive, decreased the mana regen, and they decreased the mana restored. So pretty huge nerf on Arcane Boots. Will affect a lot of builds, especially from supports. It felt like a lot of supports were just going Arcane Boots for the team, and themselves, obviously, into like double, triple bracer. That really felt like the meta, especially supports would just go like one big item like Solar Crest, then they would buy 2 or 3 bracers, because of the fact that they doubled in stats at 25 minutes. So what did they do to address this? They nerfed the shit out of these stat items that doubled at 25 minutes by making them no longer do that. You see that Null Talisman, as well as Wraithband, no longer double in stats. It just, for me, I thought they might make it so if the item's in your inventory for 20 minutes, it'll double in stats. That was what I thought they would do, which I thought would be a cool change to like counter the fact that people are just spamming these items around 20, 25 minutes, but they elected not to. So we see nerf number 1 on aura items, nerf number 2 due to the Arcane Boots, right? Also got nerfed in the previous patch. Disperser I didn't really see that much of other than Lone Druid, so I'm not really sure why this got nerfed. Gleipnir was the number 1 bot item of the patch. We'd see 2 or 3 per team. Some games, at least 1. The carry pretty much always rushed it. If it wasn't the carry, it was someone else. Just nerfs across the fucking board. 300 cost, 5 damage, 5 attack speed, 25 health, chain lightning damage. Is the item probably still purchasable? Yes, that's how broken the item was. But it's definitely like only heroes that would buy it innately, like Lina, the Wind Rangers, they're still gonna buy it. It just makes them a little bit less powerful. And then we talked about Pavis and Solar Crest, and we got nerfs on those. Nerf on Pipe, nerf on the regen item that builds into Mana Boots. And the only buffed item that we saw, because we literally never saw it, Spirit Vessel, which Soul Release, the active, got an extra 10% heal reduction, which is actually 20% considering that they were healing 50%, and now they're healing 40%. So it's a 20% reduction. And Soul Release now always gains a charge when the owner dies. So, you know, you can buy it on supports, feed it up. It'll probably be a nice replacement to the double bracer, triple bracer that people were running. But at the end of the day, nothing's going to replace that because it was just bought for a reason. It was, what is it? It's 10 strength and 100 HP at minute 25. So it's 300 HP on a 500 gold item for getting the other stats, you know, ignoring everything else. Seeds of Serenity. Definitely the number 1 neutral item. I saw a few Reddit posts on it where like teams would have 4 of these at the International. Still a good item to be honest, but now it's only good if you're like farming a single camp rather than a whole team pushing a tower and it being dropped on the ground. I think this item would probably still be good if the heal only worked on you rather than being like an AoE on the ground. So we're going to see a bunch of hero changes, and most of which I think are pretty irrelevant. Like I don't see much of a difference here for Anti-Mage. Not much of a difference here. Not much of a difference here. This is actually a pretty big difference, Bloodseeker. So in order to farm, you would pretty much always need to go some mana regen item because the main ability you're using is Blood Rage. And it's like a 9-second cooldown. So effectively like 3 mana per second to cast this off cooldown. And now that's just not the case anymore. You're literally gaining a mana regen's worth item. And I'm definitely looking forward to seeing some Bloodseeker. I think we're going to see it because Sanjin Yasha seems like a pretty decent item. BKB, he likes building Mjolnir, not Gleipnir. So we might be seeing some of that. Bounty Hunter already has a really high win rate before the patch. Coming into this patch, I think like he's still going to be a really good pub stomper. He's got like a 56% win rate at the pro level, and he's not exactly a pro level hero. So really keep an eye out for him. I don't know why he's been so good for so long. He's had such a high win rate for so long, but he's just never good is what it feels like. Like he's never picked in competitive. So let's just go really through the heroes that I think are relevant. Pretty huge nerf to Clockwork. Huge buff to Crystal Maiden. We're not talking about 1 base armor here, people. We're talking about 1 armor at level 25. Let's fucking go. Actually level 30. Okay, so I think this Death Prophet buff pretty huge. Base damage for lane, level 6 timing is literally 25% stronger. Got nerfed on a hero that already wasn't winning. I feel like these ranged carries like Drow that don't build Gleipnir, their stocks go up. Is she good? But she wasn't buying Gleipnir. That's why she wasn't picked before, so maybe it's worth considering. It just feels like if the hero isn't able to participate with some semblance of control in the early to mid game and the other carry is, it just feels like you're fighting 5v4 or 4v5. Healing's utility support nerf. Gyrocopter Pog. Invoker's regen around the map. He was getting picked a lot towards the end of TI. Pretty heavy nerf, especially on the health regen. Over almost 50%. Jug's probably still bad. Kunkka, I feel like, was about average, and he was only good because he's good against what's good. So it's like, is Blade Mail rushing offlaners still going to be good? I think that really determines, or is based on what the carries are being picked, so it's hard to say for sure. Now, Lifestealer, my boy, didn't even see a single pick of him at TI. Feels like Radiance heroes other than Alchemist were just simply too slow. We were seeing some Alchemist towards the end. He's also like a Radiance blink buyer that would like keep tempo with these Gleipnir buyers and kill them. I feel like any carry that doesn't fit that description is going to have a tough time. If you're seeing these like double strength off lanes in your pubs, like a Pudge 4 and a Centaur 3, and Lifestealer, I think, honestly, is going to be really strong. But aside from those lanes, the Lone Druid was actually the most broken here at TI towards the end. He saw very little play, but it was the Bare Necessities facet that people were using. They were going Treads, Gleipnir, Disperser into Butterfly and just like ending the game. So the nerf to this is pretty substantial, especially in the early game. But at the end of the day, I think he's probably still pretty good. Luna, I think she's going to be very strong still. She had like a 55% win rate in high tier pubs. I think it'll drop to like 52, 51. Marcy was really good with these ranged carries. I think that's the only reason she was picked. So if you see ranged carries, you'll see Marcy still. Otherwise, no. Mars, the facet that prevents vision, was super strong against the save supports. I think that's why he was specifically getting picked at TI in pubs. I don't think he has much value unless you're just a Mars god. Morana getting played even as carry at TI a little bit, but pretty much delegated to a 4. I think part of what made her really strong was she's a universal hero that really liked to go 1 or 2 big items. Would even see like BKB Hurricane Pike into Triple Bracer as a support because her ultimate is just so much damage. It's max attack speed and damage. They nerfed it and they nerfed the time that you have it for. But at the end of the day, I think she was so ridiculously broken that you can still pick her in pubs, especially maybe not as good in pubs since teammates won't use her ulti, but if fights are happening, she's going to be good. Naga, the most banned hero of TI. We hardly ever saw her. Barely received any nerf. She did receive nerfs on the items she usually bought, the aura items, especially mana boots. But I have to imagine if you're like a micro specialist, that Naga Siren's still going to be very strong. Nature's Prophet got some minor nerfs on Treants in the laning stage. I still think the hero is very strong if you're a specialist. And do not follow the way that Jenkins plays this hero, please. Necrophos, I love Necrophos, super fun hero, gets buffed. I actually think he might be back with these buffs, at least in pubs. Get those Reaper Scythe stacks early. He's been having that buffed a few times now, down to only 100 seconds. And Ghost Shroud's usually a 1-point wonder until your other skills are maxed out, so giving it more slow level 1 is quite significant for the portion of the game that affects. Omni Knight, super boring support. Everybody hates you except for maybe the one guy playing Omni Knight that just says, here, I save you, yay. Thank God he's nerfed. Screw this hero. PL, I think, is still the worst hero in all of Dota. Puck, still a strong mid that's vulnerable to bad lane matchups. Like you saw Monkey King, we saw Sniper. If you're in pubs and you're playing Puck, as long as you're not getting hard countered, I think she's a really strong hero. Ringmaster with some massive nerfs. His win rate on Dota 2 Pro Tracker in a small sample size post-patch was actually below 50% after being 57% across 11,000 games. But I think the biggest nerf is the cast range on Tame of Beasts, because all the setup items like Atos and Yules, it's now going to be harder to position without Ether Lens with this spell. And the radius on Wheel of Wonder, it's just going to be much more difficult to actually land all of his spells. And since all of his spells are skill shots without follow-up or proper setup in pubs, it's going to be difficult to land any of these. Sand King, thank God he got nerfed again. They can't make up their mind with how good they want Dust Devil to be. In theory, it's just an absolutely broken facet because it's free damage if you're ever chasing somebody down, and it's the fastest farming spell in all of Dota in the early game. I honestly think he'll still be fine. I think they overbuffed it here. I think before that patch, he's been gutted buffed where I thought he was solid, and then they uber buffed him to where he was at 600 radius. I think he's still good. That's where I think Sand King's at, mid or off lane. If you're looking to like kind of flex in your role queue games, Sand King's great. Sniper with some minor nerfs, especially the early game damage on Scattershot. But the overall, I think snipers were feeling pretty good in the last patch in every role, just except for maybe support. This is what this targets. Support sniper, oddly enough, was seen a lot at TI. Didn't have the best win rate, but the Scattershot was allowing you to kill somebody level 1 in lane pretty much every game, or at least make them play very scared. So more, of course, sniper, most likely mid. Tied with the massive 25 damage on his Ravage. He's now OP as fuck. We look at another save support. Nerfed. We got Tusk. Tag team was never picked and it got buffed. Drinking Buddies was OP. So now if he's pulling you to him, then it's 50% of the base spell's cast range, which means that his effective Geomagnetic Grip when Earth Spirit came out is no longer nearly as potent as it used to be before. People getting saved at TI. You get Drinking Buddies away, snowballed. It's like repositioning and 3 seconds of invulnerability at any stage of the game. That's pretty nuts. We're scrolling through. I think the biggest gutted hero of all was Windranger. They took the Whirlwind Fasten and said, up yours, Windranger, you suck now. They almost doubled the cooldown at max level. They lowered the duration. They lowered the damage. And she can no longer use it while she's power shotting or meteor hammering if you're into that sort of thing. But this is mainly for power shotting. I think Windranger might still get played and just go for the Focus Fire build with no Gleipnir, maybe even still buying Gleipnir. The fact that she's a ranged carry that farms decently and is hard to gank, I think she's going to be strong regardless. So it just comes down to if people can make it work with the Focus Fire, or if Whirlwind was so broken, you can still pick it, but I'm just under the impression you'd go Focus Fire now. So that being said, I feel like all they really did was take the most broken shit and nerf it. There were very few buffs other than the massive buff to Tide Ravage damage. So when we're looking at this patch, I think what we're going to see is very straightforward. I'm going to give you guys about a week for this to settle, but this is what we're going to see. We're going to see everybody trying the same shit that they were before because nothing was buffed. So they're not like, oh, pick this hero. It's clearly better now. They're going to see at the pro level, because they've been picking these heroes a lot and they're comfortable on them. They're going to say, okay, which of these heroes is still good? We give it about a week. We're going to see certain win rates still be above 50%. We're going to see certain win rates drop to oblivion, right? And then people are going to say, oh, it looks like this role's missing a couple heroes. I think the ones to look out for, probably Bloodseeker in the carry role. When we're looking at supports, I'm thinking Bounty Hunter. When we're looking at the mid lane, I'm thinking the heroes that aren't Puck and Sand King that were already getting picked, like Storm Spirit. When we're looking in the off lane, I think the heroes that didn't mind buying auras like Centaur, but don't need to buy them, they can just go Blade Mail Blink. Those are the heroes we're going to be seeing. And when we're looking at the supports, I still think it's going to be the safe supports. I just think those are still going to be good. And the carries, I think all the ranged carries are still going to be viable, but maybe Luna even more so because of the fact that she's not buying Gleipnir, and that's the only item that really got nerfed. That's what's going to happen. People are going to spend the first week picking the same shit. We'll come back to you guys next week saying, okay, this is what worked and this is what didn't. Check it out for yourselves. I would still highly encourage you to pick what was good in the last patch, other than Windranger. Specifically, I think the rest of the arsenal of heroes was not significantly nerfed enough to not at least give them a shot. So thank you so much for watching, guys. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys for the next video.